Well, hello there.
Hello there, sir. Fresh off the book signing tour.
Whew.
How was that?
Life is hard as a star, It's hard. Um, it was good. It was good. Kara's had a bunch of book signings, but this one's kind of special. It's the book just launched yesterday. It's going to be in all the Barnes and Nobles and Walmarts nationwide, and it's a rom-com in a time where it's called The Takeover, and it's a rom-com in a time where we could use a little laugh. So
Hmm.
it's good
We
stuff.
can use a little laugh. And, if we're talking about takeovers, and Larry will know a thing or two about takeovers. He's been involved in some takeovers, I think, right, Larry?
Yeah,
A
quite
takeover
a
or
few
two?
actually.
Larry might know a little something about entertainment as well. I'm not sure.
A few things. I suspect he may. Yeah. hmm Well, PJ, why don't we tell our audience who we have with us today?
oh,
It is entertainment royalty
oh,
and get our show on the road.
1,000%. So today on the Braving Business Podcast, we have the privilege, and I mean that, of hosting Larry Namer, the president and CTO of Metan Global Entertainment Group.
CEO.
Did
I
I
don't
not?
think he's in technology. You
Oh,
said
that's it.
CTO.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well,
CEO. And you know what though? I don't put it past him. He can probably do everything.
he probably do everything.
Larry
It's true.
Larry is an entertainment maverick and the founder and pioneering spirit behind Entertainment Television. Huge impact on my life and my wife's life. So thank you for that, Larry. With a career that exemplifies the essence of ingenuity, Larry's willingness to challenge the status quo and knack for innovation has reshaped how all of us consume entertainment. His journey from the cable slinging streets of Manhattan to the glitz of global TV is a masterclass in vision, tenacity, and disruption. The company Larry founded and currently runs, Metan, aka LJN Media Group, is an important player in the global entertainment industry, particularly in China, where their flagship series, Hello Hollywood, is shown on over 40 television stations and reaches over 1 billion, that's with a B, Mandarin speaking viewers. Larry, we're honored you've chosen to spend a little bit of time with us on our podcast and with our audience. Welcome to the Braving Business Podcast.
Great. Oh, thanks for having me. Should be fun to be part of this for the next 45 minutes or an hour.
Sounds
Wonderful.
great. Well, Larry, we're truly honored to have you with us, and we were thrilled when your team reached out to us. We'd love to start with the early days. Yeah. And by the way, PJ, what do we mean by cable slinging streets? That's I'd never heard that term before. But
Yeah, you know what? We're going to find out.
okay. Well, Larry, let's talk about those early days. Before Entertainment Television was the household name that it is today, and as PJ has said, it has completely changed what entertainment is, and how entertainment is perceived. And we'll dig into that a bit in the next couple of questions. What inspired you to even get into the cable industry? How did you end up going to where you went?
I grew up in Brooklyn. A family, basically immigrant stock. And, my father drove a Pepsi Cola truck, and my mother worked for the Department of Social Services and, public schools and all that. And then when I was the first kid ever to go to college in the family. So when I got out, I thought getting a job is easy. And then I found out it's not so easy. And so I knew somebody who was in the electrical workers union, who I said, I need kind of a temporary job until I figure out what I do in my economics degree. And they said, well, we just organized this thing. It's called cable television. I'm not really sure what it is. But, we know we organized them. They're now part of the union. And you could go see this guy and give them, tell them I sent you, and they'll probably give you a temp job. So I did that. And company was called Sterling Manhattan, which was the first big urban cable system in the U.S. And I joined the union. They gave me a job. I was the assistant splicer underground Manhattan. So I used to every day, 8:30 in the morning, go down under the streets of New York with the roaches and the rats and put the wires together. And I kind of grew from there. Part of it was very early days of cable, and most of the folks that work with me underground, certainly didn't have college degrees, and most didn't have high school degrees, and um, so I kind of rose through the ranks there fairly quickly because I know how to read the instruction booklets and use the equipment and do all of that. And then, then they asked me, they said, well, you're good at talking to people, who come from the Harvards and Yales and stuff like that, because Time Inc. had bought the company. So it was, all the Ivy Leaguers running it. And so they actually made me a union official. And I was the vice chairman of the Cable Workers of America kind of thing. I think I was 23 years old, and I had to negotiate contracts with with all those folks from Time Incorporated and stuff like that. And then, eventually they wanted me to go into management. I refused. They kept asking me, and finally I did it. And so I ended up in Manhattan Cable. I was director of operations. So yes, with technology, I know way more than I should. I had
Well, there you
all
go. PJ had it right. You could have been CTO, right?
Slinging cable.
Yeah,
all
slinging
the
cable.
all the operating groups reported to me. So I would think I was 25, and I had installation, construction, engineering, all of those things reporting to me. And I ran that for a while. And then they made me the head of corporate development, trying to find new uses of cable television. So, which was kind of fun. It was pre-internet, and we were doing remote medical diagnostics and data transfers and all of that. So I had to learn technology pretty quick. And then from there, all the big cities started to think about cable as more than just good reception. And there was a group out of Canada that won the franchise for Los Angeles, and they were going to build the first two-way interactive cable system ever built. But the city of Los Angeles insisted it all go underground, as opposed to telephone poles. Well, there was only one character in the U.S. who knew how to build underground cable systems, and that was me. So they interviewed me. I refused. Said I'm, not an LA guy, but they managed to convince me. So anyway, that's how I ended up in LA.
Wow. And then you started the paragon that is E Entertainment, which hey, before I even came on, my wife asked me to thank you for Talk Soup. That's how she got all of her tidbits and news on what's going on in the entertainment world. So we're very thankful for that show. It was absolutely wonderful, and all the other great shows that you had on there. E Entertainment would love to delve into how that got started, but from a general perspective, it really has become synonymous with what we call celebrity culture, right? And so, do you foresee that this niche of this kind of culture becoming a cornerstone of entertainment television, or did you foresee it becoming such a cornerstone of entertainment culture, or was it more like just luck?
A little bit of both. People, would want to hear that this was some grand plan or whatever, but I got recruited to come out to LA, which I did. They offered me like crazy amount of money, 4 times what I made in New York and stuff like that. So I built that cable system, but then the company from Canada sold it, and they wanted me to go to Toronto. And I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't go from like Brooklyn to LA to go back to, to go to Canada. So I'm not doing that. So my friend Alan and I, being naive and not realizing that people don't start TV companies and TV networks, we just came up with this idea. We looked at, say, MTV. Okay, there was music on television, and MTV became music all the time, back in that day. And, we said, what they do is so simple. They stand the host in front of a green screen and go, and Madonna has a new video. I said, let's take the entertainment world. Let's take Entertainment Tonight, 24 hours a day. And instead of Madonna has a new video, and Schwarzenegger has a new movie. So that's how the idea kind of formulated. And we weren't smart enough to know that you can't do this. And, we would go to people, they go, you know what, that's not a bad idea, but you're not Rupert Murdoch, you're not Ted Turner, you're not Time Warner. And so we just kept, going. And eventually, at that time, the going rate to start a TV network was somewhere between 60 and $100 million. And
To start
after,
one.
yeah. And then after 3.5 years, we realized nobody was giving us that money. And we met a banker on Wall Street, a young guy. When we walked in his office, he had movie posters all over the wall. And, Alan and I kind of looked at each other and said, this is weird. And the guy's going, oh, I was the entertainment reporter for my college newspaper. And we're like, yeah. And he goes, I really want to do this. And I said, great. Could you give us 100 million rather than 60 so we could do everything we want? And he went, oh, no, I'm only allowed to sign for 2.5. And I went, well, what are we supposed to do with $2.5 million? It's like 60 to 100. Because that's all I could sign for. Anyway, we said, you know what? After 3.5 years, we'll figure it out. We took the money and, we got it on the air. But, we were obviously very tight on money. And that's how things like Talk Soup came about. We said, we're not going to make movies and we're not going to make fancy television. And Talk Soup was interesting because when Alan and I came up with it, people said, wait, Larry, you lost your mind. You want to do a TV show that makes fun of TV shows. I went, exactly. That's what I want to do. Everybody thought that was a loony idea, and Talk Soup ran 26 years. So,
yeah. Fantastic TV for me.
Well, the interesting thing about that show and other shows, and I was in my teens and 20s. I think E! Entertainment came on the air when I was in my teens for sure. It became the background to me sitting in my room doing work. My homework, I'd have E! Entertainment in the background, and ultimately, it wasn't at the time. It was because it was cool. Everyone was watching, everyone was talking about it, and so that's what exposed me to it initially. And then it became just a routine part of my life, and I'm sure that was true for a lot of people. Now, as you said, and it was funny that you said it that way. You said, "Well, people would like to hear that was some master plan." Well, not on the Braving Business podcast. One of the things that we frankly take pride in is that we are not about pretending that there is this master of the universe race of people who are able to envision massive things long before anyone else can, and their success is kind of prescribed, or it's written in the stars. Ultimately, yes, absolutely, it takes a lot of talent, it takes a lot of vision, but it takes an enormous amount of luck. And there's no question that breaking through and having the impact that you had with the entertainment took a great deal of that. In addition to becoming synonymous with celebrity culture, you became known for pioneering reality TV, which was not a thing. So how do you view the evolution of that genre? It's gone, 100x where you guys started it, but how do you view it? What do you think the impact has been on the entertainment industry?
Well, what's that saying is, about necessity is the mother of invention. We had no money, so we had to be really creative with the programming. And so things like Talk Soup, and then, people thought we were nuts then. And then Alan and I met this tall radio guy in an elevator in New York, and he was telling us that he can do, all this programming and stuff. And we kind of watched this thing, and it reminded me, there was an old TV show though called WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh, I love that show.
And so when we went and looked at Howard Stern's radio show, I went, this is KRP in Cincinnati, but real life. And, went back to the team and said, hey, I want to put cameras in this guy's radio studio. And they went, Larry, we thought you were out of your mind when you did Talk Soup, but now your radio's been dead for 40 years. And they didn't get it. They didn't get that it was real life KRP. And, Howard obviously went on to do pretty well. And
pretty well. Yes, indeed.
And that stuff. And, we really paid a lot of attention to what our gut feels were. in terms of what the audience was looking for. We did no research. I mean, we did not hire research companies or anything like that. It was entirely gut feel and instinct. And, you know, quite honestly, when you have 24 hours a day to fill, you could fill it with like whatever pops in your head that morning, you know. And a lot of times people would just drop by and, you know, say, you know, Paula Abdul and, you know, people like that. And they'd say, oh, you know, we had nothing to do. Could we host? And we're like, yeah, turn the lights on. And we turn the lights on and they would host. And people loved it. It was, you know, we really started the whole thing with red carpets and things like that. And people don't realize that the first award show we ever did, we applied for press passes for the Academy Awards and we were rejected. They said, oh, you're some stupid little cable network. No, we're not giving you press passes. So actually the producer, I, and a little team, we climbed over the fence with the equipment and we snuck onto the red carpet and we were talking to people about what we were interested in. Not like, so Tom Cruise, tell us about your next project, but like, what the hell are you wearing? You know, where'd you get that? And you know, people responded to it. They go, that's amazing. It felt like we were someplace we weren't supposed to be. And we're going, yeah, because we weren't supposed to be. So we managed to stay on the carpet until security caught us and threw us out. But that kind of led us to, you know, the other things like, you know, Fashion Police with Joan Rivers and stuff like that, because we knew people loved that stuff.
You know, one of the people I just want to talk about one favorite host of yours, and he was the first host of Talk Soup, I believe, Greg Kinnear, who was not at all famous. I mean, you guys more or less discovered Greg Kinnear, who ended up becoming, you know, through the 90s and into the 2000s, a very prominent presence. How did you, I mean, did you stumble upon a Greg Kinnear? I mean, did you know when you saw the man, this guy has got some serious talent?
Well, you know, it is a great example of sometimes it takes me a lot for me to realize. But we were out, before we launched, we were out pitching all these film companies to advertise. And we didn't have any, you know, again, we only had $2.5 million. So Alan and I were basically going, you know, we were everything. We were the producers, we were the ad sales guys. So we went to a film company, a little film company, makes like 3 monster movies a year or something for 25 grand, you know, back in that day. And so I had an appointment. I left my house and I get to the place. It's like early in the morning, and the receptionist says, "Oh, we've been trying to call you and tell you not to come because Mr. whatever his name was, the head of marketing, didn't show, you know, didn't come to work today." So I was like, "Oh God, you know, I came straight here. You know, is there anybody I can talk to?" And she said, "Well, his assistant's here." I go, "Well, could he buy anything?" She goes, "No, not really." I went, "No, it's a waste of time." I said, "But you know what? I'm here. Let me leave the stuff." So, you know, I go and talk to the assistant, whose name is Greg Kinnear.
Oh my goodness.
You know, we're going through the whole thing and I'm going, now we could put you between the Madonna video and the Schwarzenegger, you know, movie trailer and da 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 da. And he's like, "Well, who's going to be the host?" I go, "Well, interviewing people and whatever." And it keeps going on. "Well, you know, maybe I could host." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, what did you go to, like, you know, acting school or something?" And, you know, were you in the film program in like Arizona or whatever? And, you know, he says, "You know, I want them to buy advertising." So I said, "Okay, Tuesday, come and see Eileen. Here's the address at 2 o'clock, and she'll, you know, she'll interview you and put you on tape." So there's this woman, Eileen Graham, who was doing all the interviews, and a lot of people don't realize. And, you know, they always say, "Oh, you were lucky you had all those great hosts." We weren't lucky. We realized we didn't have a lot of money and that we weren't going to make fancy movies or, you know, have fancy production, that it was going to be all about the host. So to get those first 4 hosts, 5 hosts, we ended up putting 7,200 people on tape, which is a lot. And so anyway, so, you know, the Tuesday comes around and I'm trying to figure out how to make payroll on Friday, you know, because that was always an issue. And, you know, Eileen comes in the office and says, "Oh, that guy is here. He wants to say hello." I'm like, "Look, Eileen, I'm really busy. I don't have time to say hello. Tell him I said hi." You know, she comes back like next time. She says, "Well, he's really insisting. He's, you know, does like Lee say hello?" And I'm like, "Eileen, I'm really busy." And I said, just take him in the studio and put him on tape. She comes back, like, she says, Larry, we're taping the guy. I want you to come in. And I'm like, Eileen, what was it about? I'm too busy to, to come in the studio that you didn't understand. Literally takes me by the ear, and goes, come in the studio. So I go in the studio and she cues him, and he lit up the camera, just lit it up. I just looked and went, holy shit. And I went, that's it. That's our first host. And Greg was our first host.
That is amazing. You probably have, unfortunately, our show's like, 45 minutes to an hour. You probably have a good 30 days worth of stories that are just amazing about all that. I mean, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And PJ, before you go to the next question, I as I tend to do, and Larry, if you've listened or watched any of our shows, and if you haven't, you should. I like to draw out lessons for our audience from what we hear from the guests, and here's a couple of things that I drew out of the story Larry just shared. First of all, you need good people around you, right? It sounds like you had someone at your side who knew what you were looking for, who knew to draw you out of your office, pulling you by the ear, so to speak, to see something she knew would light you up and potentially can make a big difference. So we've heard people talk over and over on this podcast about how important it is to build a great team around you of people that are passionate, they understand you, they understand what you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes you're not going to see the tree from the forest, but they will. And if you are fortunate enough to have them and you're confident enough to lean into those skills and those people, good things will happen. So I heard that part of the story. And the other part of the story that we've heard a great deal as well is just sheer dumb luck. I mean, you ran into Greg Kinnear, who was doing something entirely different, completely by accident, and changed his life. Let's mention that 5 or 6 years later, he was a nominee for an Oscar. Okay. I mean, you changed his life, and it was because you ran into him. Let's face it. I mean, I'm a person of faith, so I'd say there was some guiding hand there. Others would say complete coincidence and total luck. Interesting, and I felt like I should bring that out, PJ.
Yeah, no. That's a great point. But also, just like Larry Kasanoff said, sometimes you have to have a little touch of the madness, right? And the pure fact that Larry's out there with Alan and they're like jumping the fence and they're getting on the red carpet and they're creating content that no one had ever seen before. That's moxie, right? So there's luck. Obviously, you're 1,000% correct, but also that having that inner belief or that temetry to just go, you know what, I'm gonna go after that. I'm gonna try that. No one's doing this. This is interesting. Let's see how it flies. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I have a number for both of you that I wonder if you can guess what this pertains to. If I said the word 21 million, 21 million, actually, it's a time span, 21 million years. What do you think that means? 21 million years. Like that was just mentioned yesterday as a stat. 21 million years.
I have no clue, sir.
No clue.
Enlighten us.
The U.S. populace consumed 21 million years worth of streaming services last year. That's how much video was watched in the U.S. cumulatively. That is nuts. That is nuts. And it kind of goes into my question, Larry. So you've been not only the arbiter of change, but you've also seen a change outside of your own environment, the entertainment industry over these past decades. You see the landscape of media and entertainment evolving. How do you see like the streaming services finding, obviously 21 million years of content, it's found its niche. What do you think the future holds? Like where are we going from here?
Yeah. In today's world, I would not have started E as a linear TV network. I'm a huge believer in streaming and on demand and stuff like that. And I do a lot of that these days. Particularly in China, that's literally all we do is we program to streamers. It gets, people go, oh, that'll never happen. I go, it's really simple. Let me give you this example. Do you want to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it, or do you want to watch what NBC wants you to watch when they want you to watch it? We all know the answer. So other than live sports and news, what is there that needs to be live? Years ago, I mean, this may sound like a crazy idea, but back in the linear TV world, when, before streaming and on demand, I always looked at it, I said, I watch 60 Minutes faithfully whenever I can. And I said, okay, so if we look at all the people who want to watch 60 Minutes, as being 100%, but then we eliminate those who can't watch Sunday night because they're out with the family and whatever. I said, why don't we just have a 60 Minutes channel and run 60 Minutes 24 hours a day, each week? I said, over the course of the week, you would get 100% of the people who wanted to watch 60 Minutes got to watch it. And now you look at, with streaming and nonlinear TV, I watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it on whatever device I want to watch it on. It's going to continue to go that way. We freed up. The last thing in the world you want to be now as a job is being like the program scheduler for NBC. I mean, who cares what they think? So I love nonlinear. It's open. It's a creator. It's opened up all kinds of avenues. Before everything was kind of restricted. You had to fit in the box. And back to one of the things you were saying is what I've always found is when you come up with an idea that is not really mainstream or hasn't been done, and you say to people, well, just imagine, you lose them. I mean, they can't imagine. So that's why, with Alan and I, with E and me and, some of my later stuff, I've just learned that if it feels good, if it's new and different and it feels good in my gut, just go for it. Because once they see it, they go, oh, that's what you mean. No, you should have told me that's what you wanted to do. People can't imagine, particularly media content and stuff like that, when they haven't seen it. Even now, when I pitch networks on ideas, the first question out of their mouth, you get the, low-level development executives or younger development executives. They go, well, what's it like? And I'm like, it's not like anything. It's a new idea. And those are the hardest things to get through with people, because some of the stuff I'm doing now is, it's out there. It's just not part of mainstream media.
Yeah, it's again, I'm pulling a couple of really interesting themes out of what you said. And so before I ask my next question, I want to comment on that. I think that the reality that many entrepreneurs face, particularly if you're doing something innovative, is that the most likely reaction from the marketplace is going to be that you're nuts. You're doing something they don't understand. It's not been done before. And the mindset is, well, if you're doing something that has been done before, there's probably a reason for it because you're not the only smart person. Well, the reality is actually there is, generally speaking, someone or some group of people that are more innovative than others and is more of a risk-taking individual or group than others, and they are going to lead. Ultimately, there's always a first. And even if you're not the first, you could still be part of a very select group of people that are doing something that for most others feels too risky. Entrepreneurs, generally speaking, don't see risks the same way that people who aren't entrepreneurs do. They see the risk as part of the excitement. And as I've read about you, and there's a great Medium article about you, about the 5 things you wish you knew when you started E-Entertainment. One thing that resonated with me that came through very loudly is you're very proud of the risks you took, and you're very proud of the fact that you saw things other people didn't see. Can you talk to us about vision and how do you see vision as an entrepreneur? And maybe let's step away from the specifics of what you've done and maybe talk about it more writ large. How important is it for an entrepreneur who's got a vision to be relentless about pursuing that vision?
Well, it's very, very important. But I'm actually one of these people who kind of go against that thing, follow your passion. One of the things that I do that I think is really a big part of why I've been successful in a lot of things I've done is I self-assess. I wake up in the morning, I have 10 new ideas. I mean, why, we don't know. We think it's because my mother dropped me on my head. But um, but at the end of the day, I go, okay, let me kind of go over that stuff. And I go over it and go, you know what? It was a good idea this morning, but boy, was that a dopey one. So the one thing that we all have as entrepreneurs, whatever, is time is finite. We only have so much time. And that when you follow your passion, sometimes maybe it wasn't smart to begin with, maybe the environment has changed. There are all kinds of things that can make what maybe was a good idea not such a good idea. And people stick with it too long. So they waste their valuable time pursuing something that's never going to be, as opposed to going, hey, you know what? That was dopey. Next. And, and I'm a next person. I'm going, okay, bad idea. What's next? And I move on quickly. So I don't waste a lot of my time.
Yeah, that is very similar to the fail fast concept that we talked about with, I believe, Fred Carey, very, very successful entrepreneur who was on our show recently. And I asked him to define it because, it sounds so easy, right? So flippant. Oh, fail fast. But, effectively, what is failing fast? It is about recognizing that some big or grand idea of yours isn't working, or isn't working in the iteration that you've put forth, and you have to pivot. And for some people, that feels like failure. To an entrepreneur, particularly entrepreneurs that recognize that all ideas are iterative, nothing starts and ends in the same place. To an entrepreneur that understands iteration, that movement forward is part of the process, not an indication of failure. And as I think, the first name for E-Entertainment, I believe, was Movie Line, right? I mean, you guys started off doing one thing and it was very narrow, and then you saw a bigger opportunity, and you didn't perceive that as some acknowledgement of failure. You had a better idea. You saw a bigger vision, and you moved forward in that direction.
Yeah, it's actually funny. The name was Movie Time. And, way back then, don't forget, we're in the time of linear television before we have the internet and stuff like that. And one of the things that we realized, that a lot of times a movie trailer is actually better than the movie. And people love movie trailers. So I was going to take movie trailers and then combine it with the technology that Weather Channel used to be able to provide local movie information, time, schedules, all of that, so that you could see a trailer for a new movie, but regardless where you were, it would then show you on the bottom where it was playing and what time in your neighborhood, so you didn't have to go look for a newspaper. And so that's how we were going to start, because that was the cheapest way, and we didn't have a lot of money. And the cable operators that we spoke to, because we needed to get on cable systems. And they were like, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to tell people what's in the movies because we want them staying home and watching HBO. And we were like, do you really think that, an 18-year-old kid going on a date wants to stay home and watch HBO? They want to go to the movies. And, I want to go to the movies. And so the cable operators didn't get it. And, so we ended up not doing it. And then, when we started to see where we were successful, it was the world of entertainment. It wasn't just the film business. And we were all about pop culture. And, now I think he is a little too US centric. I think the geography of the media world has changed dramatically. The technology has changed dramatically. And I don't think that, particularly here in the US, the powers that be have kind of realized that and adjusted to the change. They try and hold on to what was as opposed to imagine what can be.
Sure. Well, and so you've been at the forefront of outreach and growth internationally, and through Metan Development Group, you've been delivering what we package so well, Western entertainment, to Chinese audiences. Us being on stateside, we hear a lot of different stories in regards to the idiosyncrasies of dealing with a much larger Chinese market. What are some of the nuances that you've had to navigate with Metan and dealing in China?
Well, I did a bunch of stuff in Russia. I had a big TV show in Russia. I figured they have so many problems. They've had enough reading Dostoevsky that they need soap operas. And something to get their mind off of the problem. So,
And Brenda just got them all down. Got it.
yeah. So then, I kind of moved from Russia to China, and it was really interesting. And coming from the family background that I am, my parents, again, that immigrant mentality, you were unbelievably respectful and stuff. And that's kind of the way I approach these different countries that I go into. Um, I'm not there to change their government. I'm not there to do that kind of stuff. I'm there to like give them something to take their mind off their problems, for the most part. So in China, where we were successful and continue to be successful, we're in China now 12 years, is Chinese people are very proud. See, when the Soviet Union fell apart, the U.S., we were the center of the world. We thought we could do whatever we want. We control everything. And, now China's arisen as the power in the East and we're the power in the West. But we realized that that Chinese people are happy to be Chinese. And so we program only in Mandarin in China, and we programming to the specific taste of the Chinese audiences and stuff. I can give you an example. So like, here we have E! News Daily, and celebrity news is turned into TMZ, and let's find someone cheating on their girlfriend or their wife, and we'll expose them and ruin their life. In China, it's much more sweet and gentle. It's like when you interview Tom Cruise here, it's like, so tell us about Scientology and da 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 da. In China, it's like, well, what do you do with your kids on the weekend? And so we've been very cognizant of that. And, I kind of like my relationship to doing stuff all over the world. And he's in 142 countries now, by the way. So, we have to realize that there's a big world out there. But, when I would go to my mom's house and, after my dad passed, my mom lived in Florida. And I'd go, oh, tonight I want to go to eat Italian food at 8 o'clock. And she'd go, no, we're going to deli at 5:30. And I'm like, no, I don't eat until 8 o'clock and I want Italian. And she'd be, you know what, if you don't like the rules of this house, go somewhere else. And that's kind of the way I deal with China and stuff like that is I'm there to entertain the people. I'm not there to change their government or make political commentary and stuff like that. And I'm just respectful of that they have a different way than we do. And, so that's now allowed us to be pretty successful there.
That's neat. One of the things that's interesting about you is that you've been celebrated domestically and internationally. I know you were the first recipient of the Aaron Spelling Award here in the United States, and you also received an award for what you've accomplished in China. Tell me what recognition means to you personally and professionally. I mean, we all who are out there trying to innovate, and I'm not putting myself into your class. I'd love to be, but I'm not. The reality, though, is that being recognized for standing out and doing things that other people appreciate is, generally speaking, something that feels really good. How important has it been to you, particularly as you've moved on to the later stages of your career, that people recognize that Larry Namer changed entertainment?
Yeah, it's a weird feeling, kind of, quite honestly. Once in a while it hit. I don't really get caught up in the fame and all that kind of stuff, but every once in a while something happens. When I started doing stuff in China, my partner, I have a woman partner in Beijing, and she would introduce me to people there. And she'd be explaining, he's the guy that started E! And it's now a heart of 140 countries and, it's changed the world of entertainment. And I'd see like a blank look on people's face. And I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden I would hear someone say in Chinese, talk soup, talk soup. And I go like, holy shit, they know talk soup in China. I said, that's pretty cool. But I think the one that kind of pops out as the one that I personally take as like a wow moment. People say like, what's your proudest moment? And they expect me to say E! And again, E! is, 142 countries and value up in $5+ billion and stuff like that. And it is arguably the #1 influencer of pop culture in the world. and that's cool. I get it, but I did
Just
a
cool.
Yeah.
I decided I was on a train from Shanghai back to Beijing, and I decided that I'm funny and that I'm going to write comedy. And because I've never written comedy in my life. Um, and people say that, that's the hardest thing to do. And, you can't write comedy for a culture you are not part of. I said, okay, I could do that. So I wrote this story outline about the contradictions of modern Chinese life. What happens when you have incredible economic growth in a short period of time and people's social skills don't grow as quick as their bank account? It's like you look at the rich Arabs and Chinese and Russians, they're wearing Gucci this and Prada that and gold chains and all of that stuff. So I wrote this thing and I gave it to my partner and she loved it. She said, "Could I take this to the TV station?" Well, the TV station, the biggest station in China is called CCTV 8, and they apologize that they only reach 1.1 billion people. Um,
Well,
and
you got to start somewhere.
he said, I brought it to them and they really like it. And the head of the channel wants to meet the writer, so I arranged dinner. So we go to dinner and I'm sitting waiting for them to come in. They come in and she's talking in Mandarin. And I know enough Mandarin that I understand the guy is saying, no, no, I want to meet the writer. This is a white guy. And I'm like, really? You think so? And, the guy was educated in the West. He turns to English and he goes, no, I didn't make any offense, but I never thought this was written by anybody other than a Chinese person. Um, because it really was insightful. Not rich is good, or poor is good, or city is good, or rural is good. And he goes, we're Communist Party TV, and you're an American. I can't put this on television. I went, okay. And 2 weeks later, he calls back and says, I went to the propaganda department with it because I liked it so much. And of course, they know who you are. And in China, they do have a propaganda department. Um, and they said, I can do it. And I said, great. What do you want to pilot? He goes, no, I want to order 36 episodes. I'm like, 36? So, yeah. So it ended up, we did 72 episodes of this comedy. Um, and it gets nominated at the Asia TV Awards in Singapore in the best sitcom category. It's the only sitcom from China that was nominated. We didn't win, but I said, you know what? This is actually pretty cool. The funniest TV show in China is written by a New York Jew.
I love it. I mean, you can't make that stuff up, right? That's
no. So, to me that, I'm going, okay, I figured out that people like Hollywood gossip, but writing a comedy in a language I don't speak for a culture I didn't grow up in, I said, that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. You should be very proud. I can see why you are. So not only have you partaken in, in lending your influence to, outside of the US, but you also are an advisor to Microsoft of all places, and which is obviously very, very cool. And I wanted to ask about, what has come up to the forefront recently, which is AI, and the entertainment industry having some that AI is on the radar, and I know that a lot of content creators, a lot of, like, my wife's an author, she's very well aware of AI, and how it could be a help, but also how it could be a complete threat to her livelihood. What do you think about AI? How do you think that that might help or hurt trends in the future for entertainment and streaming services in particular?
Sure. I'm a big believer that, you can't stop technology from marching on. I mean, I think you could look at the music industry for years. The industry was like, we're not going to let digital music happen. It's against whatever. And, they let, the growth of iTunes and, all of the music streaming services. But with AI, there's the good and the bad. Um, if I would do a story outline, I've been using AI for as long as ChatGPT's been around, the first iterations. So normally it would take me 5 days to write a story outline for a series. With ChatGPT 4 now, it takes it about 30 seconds to spit it out and takes me about 1 hour to edit it. And people go, people are worried about it. I go, if you could work out a system where you could still get paid for what used to be 5 days work, but it only takes you 1 hour, why wouldn't you want to do that? You could go on vacation, you could spend time with your kids, you could write more, you could learn how to play pickleball and stuff like that. So there's all this good stuff. Now, there is the chance of bad stuff happening. So you put this tool in the hands of people who want to do bad, they can. But this is where I think our legislators need to kind of catch up with the technology and stuff. For example, a 12-year-old kid who wants to get in the car and drive can't do that because, hey, he's only 12 and you can't do it. But when he gets to be 18, he's got to take driving lessons. He's got to learn how to do it. He's got to take a test to pass. And then there are rules of the road that you have to follow, or there are penalties. We don't have any of that for technology and stuff. And AI is going to happen. And there's so much good stuff. It's helping with medical research and all kinds of stuff that we need a body of law, a body of regulation that at least curtails the bad stuff. But some of the other stuff is just us learning how to develop it. I mean, we develop all these AI avatars and stuff like that. And basically, an AI avatar is a psychopath because they just don't know what's good and what's bad. They didn't. And when you think about humans, we grow up, we have a little family, we have mothers and fathers, and then we go to school. And so if I were to say to you, take a knife and stick it in towel, you go, no, I can't do that. And the reason is because you've been brought up in such a way that you know that you're not supposed to stick someone with a knife. The AI models have to go through this growth strain period where they begin to humanize, where they begin to empathize. So they know, so they at least understand good and bad, and it's much harder to get them to do bad things.
That's fascinating.
A couple of funny things. One is a funny story. Actually happened today. My son, who is in England studying abroad this year, sent a picture to me and his mother of him. Apparently, it was a picture that he took from TV. He was at the soccer game and Everton scored a goal. And there's a blurred image of him raising his hands, and he circled and he said, "There's me at the soccer game." And my ex-wife said, "Well, that doesn't even look like you. How do we know it's you?" And I went to DALL-E, which is ChatGPT's image of companion, and I asked it to take that image and add Elvis Presley on the bottom right of the image, and it did immediately, right? And I posted that and I said, "Well, I'm not sure if that's you, but how did you guys miss that Elvis Presley was sitting on the bottom right?" Right? So one of the really potentially dangerous from an entertainment standpoint, it could end up. There's a lot of entertainment value, but there's a lot of risk associated with poorly governed or not governed AI. And I think you touched it. You touched on it. One of the reasons that we have rules of the road is for the safety and benefit of everyone. And I hope and I expect, and I know the EU is actually leading there more so than we are so far in the US, that there will be rules of the road around generative AI. I have a startup that's in AI. I'm a huge believer in the space. I think the opportunities there are enormous. At the same time, the risks are great, and I think that, we probably have a very similar viewpoint of that. We're almost out of time, and I want to ask you. I have my one last question that PJ will end us. Will send us into the sunset. My question to you is about building and selling businesses. So you sold, I believe E-Entertainment was originally bought by Comcast. They came in along with Disney and eventually became the majority owners. I think now it's part of NBC Universal. Can you tell us, what are your guiding principles, and particularly during that time period when you're thinking about shifting from running a business to maybe selling it? Are there any principles that, if we have listeners who maybe have built a business, obviously probably not on the scale of what you built, but they've built a successful business and they're thinking about exiting. Are there any really important lessons that you learned or important considerations that you would recommend they keep in mind?
Yeah, I think, for entrepreneurs, the fun is in the startup, quite honestly. I mean, I can still consider myself a content creator or a creative or, whatever. But, we grew so big so fast that I found myself spending all my time doing budgets and board meetings and, doing all this corporate stuff and doing very little of what I love. So I wanted to get back to that. And, then you have to measure that against valuations and all kinds of stuff. You go, okay, if I were to leave today versus what it could be worth, in X years from now, is it worth it? Do I leave some of that money behind in order to go on? And then, quite honestly, when you hit a certain point in what the valuations are that you're going to sell out, you realize that, you've created generational wealth or whatever you want to call it. How many yachts do I don't do any of that stuff anyway, but how many houses do you need? How many yachts do you need? How many Mercedes, I'd rather do what makes me happy. And when it gets to the point where the companies get so big and so complicated, you're no longer doing what you love, then it's time to leave.
Very true.
It's a great call out. And you know what? It's tough because you get addicted, I think, and maybe addiction is too strong a word. So let's just say you become accustomed to being the leader, the CEO. There's prestige associated with that. And oftentimes you have lost connection with what got you started, and you have become something else. You become a business person as opposed to as opposed to whatever it was that got you started. And now, as you said, you're finding yourself wrapped up in P&Ls and cost of customer acquisition and things that are not the reasons you got in the business. And it is hard to recognize that the moment has arrived where the right thing for you to do is exit. I've had several exits, and every time there was a feeling of, how do I leave? I mean, this is my baby. I built it. But recognizing that it's the right time, it's not a science, it's an art. It does have a lot to do, in my experience and from other people that we've spoken to, with recognizing that you're not having fun anymore. Now, not all of us have the privilege of being able to make the determination on that basis, right? But if you are in a position where you can make that, where there is the opportunity to exit, and whether it's generational wealth or just, sufficient numbers to justify exiting and put you on a path to start something new, and you're not having fun, that's a pretty good marker. So a good call out. Thank you, Larry, for that.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like successing yourself out of joy, right? Like it kind of morphs into something else. Larry, first of all, thank you so much. The time we've spent with you, I do have one more question, but the time we spent with you has been enlightening and fantastic. I do have to say, I'm not an art major or anything, but that picture behind you, I have been scheming about how to get it into my house, because it looks like a Jackson Pollock. I don't know what it is, but it's very, very cool. So
it's a Jackson Pollock.
from aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. Well done. But really, one of the things that we love to ask people who are on the show are, what piece of advice would you give someone who's just starting out, who's aspiring, who's like, hey, maybe I can be a successful entrepreneur. Maybe I can do something in media. What one piece of advice would you give to someone just starting?
Well, I think, we kind of touched on it before, and that's the whole thing about self-assessing and getting your ego out of the way and realizing everything you come up with is not necessarily going to be a good idea or a doable idea. Like I say, the biggest problem I see is people just stick with stuff too long. And again, it's not like the idea could have been good when you had it, but the environment has changed, technology has changed, all kinds of reasons. And you got to learn to just go, oops, next, and let the bad stuff go and get on to the stuff that really could materialize. Again, the thing that you have is time, and time is finite. And if you don't apply it in the right places, and you stick with stuff too long, you're wasting the time that you could have been spent on the next thing that maybe could have been successful.
Yeah, that's great.
Friends, our guest today was the one and only Larry Namer. He is one of the top names, and for good reason, in the entertainment industry. He has changed entertainment in ways that virtually everyone now globally has come to experience on a personal level. Larry, it's been a great honor and a privilege to have you with us today. We're grateful that you chose to spend time with us. And maybe as a last thing, if someone is interested in learning more about what Metan is doing or what you're doing with your global media group, where would they go to find out more?
Well, probably, you could go to the wiki page, of course, or just Google my name and you come up with all kinds of crazy stuff. But where I'm actually different. I hire a publicist to keep me out of the press. And she cracks up. She said, Larry, everybody wants a magazine cover and you pay me so that you'll never be on a magazine cover. And I went, exactly. I like my simple life, and I want my kids to grow up being good human beings and not spoil little rich kids and stuff like that. So it's anyway, it's been fun being here.
Well, good luck with that, because there are probably something like 6,000 Google pages about you. So just FYI, I don't know if you know that or not.
There's a lot of it. A lot of it's not true, but some of it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Namer, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Larry.